Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Backshed Bible Study. It is good to see you here this morning. Um, Cliff Carey here. I get to host this thing every week and have been doing so for now 18 weeks, 18 episodes of the Backshed Bible Study that we have been doing. And it's a privilege to be here with you. This is, if you're joining us for the first time, this is one of those things that happened almost instantly when we all went into COVID hiding, so to speak, and it has emerged as something a lot of fun to do. And so I hope you'll enjoy joining us this morning and chatting a little bit. We're going to talk today about Sabbath and rest. And part of the reason that we're going to do that is because I am coming off of a 2 week vacation, which was absolutely amazing. I got to spend time with my family and some of our best friends for the last 2 weeks as we took a little trip out to Colorado. Actually, it was not a little trip, it was a long trip, a very long trip. We covered a little over 3,000 miles in the minivan, and we got to see, we went out I 80 through Salt Lake City and dropped down into the coolest little town. I'm going to talk about vacation for a second. We dropped in. Good morning, Donna. Good to see you. We stayed at the coolest little town out in the middle of nowhere, Utah, right off of US 6. It's a town called Helper, Utah. Okay, so if you ever have a chance to get to Helper, Utah, you gotta go there. It is this lost town that has refound its identity, and it's almost Route 66-esque. And they've brought back they got a grant to restore their little town, and they brought back all the old signs, the JC Penney sign and the old gas stations and gas pumps, and just the coolest little place. And we stayed at this little RV park right outside of Helper. We don't have an RV, because if you know anything about RV parks, a lot of them have these cool little trailer cabins, and I call them a mini mobile. And so we stayed in these little, they're park models is what they're called, and stayed in one of those, and then went on out to Colorado, went over Independence Pass, and then got to our family's place out in Colorado, where we spent the next 8 days with some of our closest friends who met up with us there. And some of you followed along on the journey on Facebook. And it was just a neat time to be completely away from uh, everything that's going on in the world. We barely saw anyone from the outside during our time while we were out there. So just a really cool time to rest, to refresh, to be with these two families who are super close friends. If have watched the Backshed Bible Study, several weeks ago, I had my friend Rich, who leads tours to Israel. And so Rich and his family came out from Michigan, and they all got COVID tested before they came, and tested negative. And then our other friend Jay and his family came from Hume Lake, where there are no cases of COVID. So we felt like we were in a pretty safe situation, and hung out with my mom. The kids all got to ride golf carts, drive. I mean, we had 8-year-olds driving golf carts around. Don't tell the golf cart police that. And ride quads, go on hikes back into the woods, and just a great time. And the kids got to be kids, and the adults, every night after we'd put the kids all to bed, we'd just sit up and talk and laugh and tell stories, and it was a good time. So with that, I came back with a little more of me here, because we ate like crazy, but we also exercised like crazy, and my watch kept telling me I was getting more steps than I ever could imagine in. And so it was a good time. So I want to say hello to Nancy out there, David, Kasperick. It was great to see you guys at church yesterday. What a blast. How fun has Church on the Lawn been? And I love how Hunter and our team branded it either you can come on lawn or online. today you are all online here in the back shed, but many of you were able to come online yesterday, which was a lot of fun. Um, let's see, who else do I want to say hi to? Valerie, missed you last week too. I was this close to um, doing it live from out there, and then I thought, no, I am on vacation. Cliff, you need to discipline yourself not to work. Not that the Backshed Bible Study is a lot of work, but I disciplined myself not to work last week or the last 2 weeks. And so outside of 2 phone conversations with Luke, I stayed away from most things Sunrise and had a great time with my family and friends, and the Lord refreshed that time. So it was super good. And we're going to spend a few minutes in the Word today, reflecting on Sabbath and reflecting on rest, because I think that that's something God reminded me how badly I needed it. In my time out there, how badly all of us needed it. We just needed a change of pace, a little bit of a change of venue. We needed to be able to slow down and not be distracted by all of the things that were happening in the world that are distracting all of us right now. And for all of us, we also needed some good quality godly friends that we could hang out with for a little while to just help keep us having good perspective. So that's where we're going to go today as we hang out here in the back shed. I would challenge any of you who are regular watchers, and I noticed that most of you that are on this morning are regular watchers. What do you see that is different in the back shed today? Okay. So the first person to hit me back with the answer to what do you see different in the back shed today gets a special prize. As you know, if you've been watching for a while, how our special prizes work, you get nothing. You get recognition. And take a cup of coffee. We're working on about a 14-second delay today. So from the time I say it till the time it comes out on the computer, on Facebook, there's about 14 seconds. Good morning, Christy Kasprick. It's great to see you here. I was telling your husband a few minutes ago, it was really fun to see you all at the on-lawn service. Ding, 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 ding. That's right, Nancy Veerkamp. You get it. License plates. I brought back license plates from Colorado. Ironically, you'll see that one right there is an old California license plate that I picked up in Colorado. So don't ask me how that works. But the fun thing is I actually have a whole stack of them here, and my kids completely got into the license plates. They're like, I want a license plate. So I pulled a couple out here, and we even found an old California one as well here. So anyone remember the old blue and gold? And then you had the black and gold there. But see, back in the old days in Colorado, they used to give you new license plates every other year. And so your license plate would actually have the year personally, like there. And so the old colorful Colorado license plate, there you go. I don't know how we found a Texas one, but we found a Texas, and Titus wanted to keep that one. Another one with the year there. But so here's the fun part of these license plates. There is, I really like this one right here because it just has the Colorado flag, and it spells out Colorado there, and it has the mountains there. But this one right here is my favorite. It is the Centennial license plate. So Colorado, trivia here for you all, is known as the Centennial State because it received its statehood in 1876. So in 1976, they came out with a special edition license plate to celebrate the centennial. Valerie asks a great question. Where did I get these? So my family has owned property in Colorado well, it was my great grandparents that homesteaded on this property where we vacationed. And as they passed away and passed on the land to their children, my grandparents, my parents, who had a dream of starting a summer camp, they started to buy off inherited land from relatives that didn't really want to have the burden of owning this land. And so my parents, over several years, were managed to purchase about 300 acres. They inherited some of it and purchased the rest, and then started a children's camp back in 1968 when they did that. And so this is a property that's been in our family since I was born in 1969. I was actually born in between sessions of camp out in Colorado. And so where did the license plates come from is the original question that Valerie asked. And they came from our place out there. And so over the years, we've kind of acquired license plates, and some of them are hanging on walls out there. And so I sneaked out, and then this one was my favorite, ZA11. Because I actually just took it off of one of our vehicles that, Sunshine, stop digging everything up. Oh my goodness, this dog missed us. I'll tell you that much. She was gone for 2 weeks. I mean, we were gone for 2 weeks, and she just started digging everything. So now she's trying to dig up a pipe I put in, a drainage pipe. Anyway, so yeah, I was born out there in between sessions of camp. My parents built up a camp, ran it for about 15 years or so. And unfortunately, because of liability and the inability to get liability insurance after someone cuts their finger and takes you into litigation, they had to shut the thing down. And so, but now it just sits as a family property that my siblings and I and my mom all own together, and we go up there and try to get out there once a year for about a week. And my sister lives about 3 hours from there, and so she's down there all the time. My mom, as many of you know, my 89-year-old mom, she goes up there and stays for most of the summer. So she will be up there by herself, but a lot of us go up and visit her. So this summer she's been nonstop. My sister arrived the day my other sister arrived the day we left, and my brother had left about 2 days before we arrived. So it's fun, and a lot of great times. It's up at 8,500 feet. I'm guessing I probably need to pull off some pictures. So stand by, you all, for a second, and we're going to see if I can give you just a little perspective of where we were in what you're looking at. Because you're like, oh, it's like a little place in Colorado, but I don't know that I would characterize it like that. So let's see here. I am going to do the old share screen here, and we're going to do it this way. And so, okay, stand by, everybody, because you know technology in real time is always an adventure. So you should be able to see my phone right now. And there you go. That is the view off of our front lawn there, looking out towards that mountain there. It's called Gibbs Peak. It's about 13,580 feet high, which is crazy. I've climbed that mountain a couple of times, and one of you're looking at one of my favorite places on the face of this earth. So took a little hike back up into the mountains to a little cabin near all of our kids. And by now you're like, hey, Cliff, this is starting to become a little bit like a missionary slideshow at church. So I'll give you one more. There's April and me sitting at this cabin. We took this identical picture before we even got engaged, when we were out there and I was showing her this place for the first time. And so here we go. We reproduced that picture many years later. So and then fun stuff. We went off to the Grand Canyon. There you go. It's the Grand Canyon. Yes, we saw that. Okay, time to stop sharing and get back here. So that was our vacation in Colorado. Good morning, Micah Paul. Good to see you here. Always good to see you. And I came back rested. So April and I were laughing. We're driving home, and I said, I feel physically exhausted but emotionally rested. and that is exactly, I mean, she's like, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, we just went for it for 2 weeks, 12 days. Even our final day home, we drove from Flagstaff. Then we got ourselves all the way to Fresno, and had let the kids swim and hung out with the family for about 3 hours, and then we drove all the way home. So we leave Flagstaff at 7:30 in the morning. We get into Sacramento about 11:45 that night. So that was a long day, but the kids are troopers, and we had a blast. So would you join me in Genesis chapter 2 this morning? We're going to talk about rest and Sabbath for the couple minutes we have together, and just see what the Lord has to say when it comes to all this. I'll try to, Donna, I'll try to find that. It's the before picture is on my nightstand is where it is, but I'm not going to take you all into the house today. Family had a little bit of a slow wake up this morning. We're in creation, and God has created the entire world and all things in 6 days. It's a great 6 days, and it's amazing what he's created. And I love how chapter 2, Genesis 2 verse 1, he says, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. It's that it is finished moment. It's all done. In verse 2, it says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. And it's so interesting to reflect on the Sabbath, because here it is, that seventh day, and in Jewish tradition, that's Saturday. And obviously we celebrate Sabbath on, tend to, as followers of Christ, celebrate that on Sunday of what we call the Lord's Day, because that is the day that the Lord Jesus Christ raised from the dead. And so that's why we celebrate our Sabbath on Sunday, even though Sabbath is Saturday. We could have a vibrant argument with my Seventh-day Adventist friends about whether we should be doing it that way or not, but that's what our tradition does, and I like it that way. Although I can tell you, as a pastor, you have to be a little more creative in figuring out how to do Sabbath, when sometimes a Sunday can kind of turn into more work than you wished. But notice this, and I want to flip over to Mark chapter 2 for a second, as Jesus is talking about the Sabbath, and as he's getting questioned about the Sabbath, and his disciples doing some things on the Sabbath, and Jesus comes back, and let's go, we're in Mark 2 again, and my Bible is flipping back and forth, and Jesus's disciples, well, Jesus is going through the grain fields. His disciples are picking some grains of some heads of grain, and the Pharisees are following along, and they're like, hey, look, they're doing something unlawful. They're working on the Sabbath. And Jesus answers, verse 25, have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the priest, he entered the house of God, ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat, and he also gave some to his companions. Okay, so I love how Jesus immediately takes them back, Old Testament, and says, wait a second, let's look back at some of our leaders in our history as a nation, and let's look at God's the man that's after God's own heart and see what he did. But then I think this is where Jesus clarifies something for all of us, is that he says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And there are, when you look at that, and you look at God's commandments in the Ten Commandments to keep that day as a holy day, the reason God gives us the Sabbath, the reason God gives us this time to rest is to help us, to help us recharge, to help us rest, to help us sleep, to help us even just personally grow, and that we're not, well, I got to be careful how I say this. It's easy to look and go, I am going to take my Sabbath, this Sabbath, or this rest time as an honoring of God. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing to celebrate Jesus Christ and what he's done. I mean, that's how we do it in Christianity. But I think we miss that God has given us the Sabbath for us. I think that's part of it that we miss, that God gives this to us, not so that we'll be so honoring to him. And work with me on this. Let's work through the scripture if you think I'm wrong on this. But I would have to say that there's really strong evidence that says, especially given on what Jesus says to the Pharisees here, it's Mark 2, Valerie. Mark 2, and kind of towards the end, verses 23 through 27, that the Sabbath was given to us. It was for us, for our health, for our growth, even for our prosperity, whatever. It's good, isn't it? Right? That's what the Sabbath is for. So maybe just to start twist our mind a little bit about why do we have Sabbath? To honor God, right? To fulfill his commandments, to do one of the 10 commandments is to remember it, to keep it holy, but also it is to allow us to receive rest. And interestingly enough, ironically, I don't know if this is ironically, but as April and I were driving back from Colorado and driving back from Arizona, and Margaret, I notice you're on here today, you talk about 111. We were driving across Interstate 40 through Needles. It was 113 degrees. And I said, baby, we are not stopping at all. We are going. So the car better not break down. But as we were driving across the desert, across the Mojave Desert, I got to thinking about Sabbath, and we had this great conversation because next summer is 7 years. Well, next March is 7 years that I've been at Sunrise, and the church gives me 2 months, gives us as pastors that have been here once we've been there 7 years, 2 months of sabbatical, of Sabbath, of time to rest and to get away, of renewal, of even training and things like that. So Randy, you say, can we really rest on the Sabbath as we should for God, even though Sundays are so busy for most of us, right? I think we, dare I say, maybe we got it wrong? Or do we give our first fruits in the sense of saying we Sabbath and rest on the literal Sabbath and celebrate the Lord on the Lord's Day, Sunday? I don't know. But it's for those of us that have busied ourselves in the church, Sunday's not a Sabbath. Sunday's not a rest. I gotta be, can I be transparent with how many of you are watching? With the 12 of you here this morning and the other couple hundred that'll watch later. But when COVID happened and we went to online services, we started recording all of our services on Tuesday and Wednesday. And suddenly Sundays became a day of rest. And I'm like, it's awesome. And but I've loved being back, don't get me wrong. But for my family, it was the first time in a long time as a family, we got to just stop and rest, and we'd watch the online service, but then we'd be a family together that day. So Jesus got called out for healing on the Sabbath, right? Yeah. I don't think we should call people out for following God's commands on the Sabbath. Just my thoughts. Okay, let's get into a couple more. Let's go back to the 23rd Psalm, because anytime any of us see the 23rd Psalm, we immediately kind of think about a funeral service, loved ones that have passed on. But there's a lot more to the 23rd Psalm than that. The 23rd Psalm is a psalm of rest. So let's read that together for a second. Everyone read all at once. Here we go. Just kidding, but follow along. The 23rd Psalm says this: "The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing." Here we go. Ready? "He makes me lie down in green pastures." Okay, so God gives us this analogy of shepherd, that he is my shepherd and I am a sheep, and he knows what I need, and he brings me to a spot of rest, and putting me in to rest, right? Forces me to rest, makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. And then this is the part where we deal with this passage in depth. It says, "Even though I walk through the new NIV says the darkest valley, or the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." And I love the part in the beginning here where David says that he makes me lie down. A few years ago, before I came to Sunrise, there was this point where God just made me stop, and it came in the form of a job loss, and it forced me to just stop and to slow down, and in so many ways to have a symbolic Sabbath of a couple of months without work, where I just got into the Word and was focusing on Him and resting. And it's ultimately that time that brought me to Sunrise, but I needed that time to give me perspective. God knew what I needed in what had been several up to that point, about 3 really hard years, 4 really hard years leading up to that point. And he just shut me down, and in that shut my family down in the process, to get us to the point of a Sabbath's rest, so to speak. So I think we need to be cautious when we talk about Sabbath, that we don't get legalistic again about this, to say, well, you know, if Sunday is your Sabbath and you're going to church and you're doing all this work at church, then you're not Sabbathing. You know, again, come back and go, how is the Sabbath work for you? How is God making that work for you? And for some of us, that means we have to find it other places than on the traditional Sunday or Saturday. I love it. Margaret, thanks for clarification there. Yes, you're referring to the fact Jesus, according to Jewish law, was working on the Sabbath. But that's when, again, Jesus comes back. It's like, hey, the Sabbath is for man, right? Let's see. Donna, you say in those times, those people had to work hard for survival. Didn't this day of rest have a different meaning? Jesus needed his people to know they could stay away from survival mode to worship. Right. And to go beyond that, I mean, remember when they were out in Sinai and roaming around for 40 years, they would collect each day what they needed, but on Friday they would collect enough for 2 days, right? And then they'd rest on the Saturday. They'd rest on the Sabbath. Thanks, Margaret. I love that you talk about loving your Sabbath time. Don't even open the mail. Time to come away from all the worldly cares and focus on God. And COVID certainly helped that too. I feel the same way. At the beginning, COVID was this amazing blessing of just slowing everything down. I feel like we were going at this frenetic pace that we couldn't stop, and we needed something to slow us down. I'm afraid it's may have slowed us down a little too much, but we won't get into that yet. Uh, but we need to rest, and uh, maybe there's a phrase in here that I could pass on to you. Uh, this phrase actually allows me to take vacation from the church. This phrase allows me to kind of go on and to disappear to Colorado for 2 weeks and know that the church is going to function just fine. And the phrase goes like this: it says, God doesn't need me. God doesn't need me. I need him, but he doesn't need me. And and for me, that means I step back away from this place where I feel like I probably have value, and maybe I'm even finding identity. And then I say, I'm going to step back from that. It will be fine. The church will work just fine without me, and I'm going to get some rest. Um, because I need rest. God programmed me. God created me in such a way that I needed rest. So how do we, sitting in the midst of COVID, outside of COVID, in a professional career, how do we, in retirement, find that rest that we need without losing? And as Donna, I appreciate your transparency here when you say that you lose your identity, and especially when you have a daily routine that takes you places, and Donna, like, you come and you're a part of, you're involved at the church, you have several activities you're a part of, and suddenly those things disappear. Where is that place of refuge, that physical place of refuge, and where did that go? And that's hard. And where does our identity go? And of course, right, we all know the right answer to this is our identity has to be in Christ. Our identity has to be in him alone, and not even in his church. It has to be in him. Okay, Micah, let's break this down. College camp at Hume. God worked through circumstances and messages to teach me about spiritual rest. I went home and made a playlist. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, to help me rest in God when I get stressed out. Still using it in what I learned that weekend. Oh, that's fantastic. I would challenge you all. There is a pastor, and I hopefully Ward Davis is on right now. But there is a book I started listening to on Audible, and I'm going to have to find it here because I want you all to, this is a high recommendation from the cliff, okay? This is a high recommendation from one of your pastors. And right now there it is. Okay. Audible. I've been listening to this when I drive. The book is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and it is by a gentleman by the name of John Mark Comer. I'm actually going to put this on the screen here for a second so you can see it. And there we go. And now I've got to do this, and then I have to do that, and you will see, there we go. So The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and that is by John Mark Comer, forward by John Ortberg, who I just learned yesterday that John Ortberg is going to be leaving Menlo Park Presbyterian Church. So interesting there, but good guy there. But Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. This book is excellent, and it will challenge your thinking in almost in a radical way, because he's going to fight a lot harder than I am today for you to take your Sabbath and for it to be something that is borderline legalistic, that you do everything you can. That's why he talks about the ruthless elimination of hurry, that you do everything you can to protect that Sabbath, because of how much you need it. So that's there's my read recommendation, or get it on Audible or wherever you most enjoy your books. John Mark Comer. He is a pastor in the Pacific Northwest, and an excellent one. I would encourage you to follow his podcast too, if you have a chance. So there you go. Let me finish with a couple of things, and then we'll wrap this up because I'm trying to get us in shorter these days. Let's see, what else today? Matthew 11, 28 through 30. I love this one too. And in it, it's again Jesus. He says, come near to me, right? You all know this one. Matthew 11, 21. 28, excuse me. Matthew 11, 28. Oh, I was looking at Matthew 10. I started to read this and it was not making sense. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. This is Jesus talking. Come near to me, all you who are weary and burdened. What is it? Weak, it also says weak and heavy laden, I think is another version. And I will give you rest. Are you having trouble resting? Draw in close to him. Take his yoke upon you and learn from him. He's gentle, he's humble in heart. You'll find rest for your souls. His yoke is easy. His burden is light. And I don't know, I always say this, I don't know about you, but for me, when I start feeling stress, the place I feel it is literally right across my shoulders. It is where, as soon as those muscles start hurting right in there, I know I'm stressed. And I have other indicators as well, but those are my primaries. And I can literally look at April and say, my shoulders are hurting, I'm stressed. And isn't that interesting? That's where the yoke comes across, right, on the oxen. And that the yoke that Jesus gives us is light, is not burdensome, does not put a weight on our shoulders. It's not like when I was a kid and we'd go up on backpacking excursions, and my dad would carry the 55 or 60 pound backpack that had everything for the family in it, and me as a little kid would have a little 10-pound pack or whatever. But sometimes we forget that the burden that Christ lays on us is easy. It's not hard. It's light. And we could do a whole study on exactly what this means. But God's not looking to put a massive weight on us. He's the one that carries the weight of our burdens. He's the one that carries our burdens. He carries the weight of our sin. He's the one that when we're trying to figure out a problem at work, when we're trying to figure out a problem in school or with our future, he's the one that when we're trying to deal with a relationship with somebody that's just not going right, when we're trying to solve all that, he's the one that carries that burden, not us. And we get into this mindset that we have to solve. And that's why our shepherd takes that hook sometimes and pulls us back and guides us into a green pasture and says, you need rest. So I want to look to you today and say, Sunrise, my friends out there, anyone else that happens to stumble upon this thing today, I'm trying to get my screen back over here. You need rest. Having come back from a vacation where I got rest, I want to say that all the more to everybody else. You need rest. So that's fun. So I'm rested, but now I got to get back to work. There's all kinds of things waiting, all kinds of problems that are waiting for me to solve. Actually, no. You know what happened while I was gone? People made decisions without me. and it went fine. The place didn't fall apart. In fact, decisions were made that may not have been made when I was there. Probably better decisions than I could have made, right? So God doesn't need us. He chooses to use us, and that's an amazing privilege. That's what I love. Okay, let me see. Let's finish up with a couple of comments here. Randy, baby oxen follows next to, but a little behind the mama, who takes the lead and carries the load. It's good. It's good. Okay, Angie, we want the message. Matthew 11:28 through 30. Okay, I'm going to find that. 11:28 through 30, and we're going to get that into the message. And I've got to change my versions here. The message. Where did it go? I know all of you right now are like, hey, if I was there, Cliff, I could quote it for you. But so I'm going to search this a different way. It turns out that there we go, message. All right, ready? So in honor of my dear friend Angie Bessenbacher, we're going to read this in the message. Matthew 11:28 through 30. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. That's beautiful, Angie. What a great thing. I love that. So here we go. As we close this out, miss the shark time. Oh, I'm sorry. Shack time. Oh, thanks, Margaret. I missed it too. Like I said, I was tempted to do it while we were out there, but decided not to. I liked that you wrote "grr" on that comment there. Sharon gets rested on cruise ships. Well, Sharon, you're going to be waiting a little bit longer. I need a yoke on my desk at work to remind me. That's a great thing. We should be passing out yokes. Oh, the unforced rhythms of grace, Angie. Exactly. You all are fun. I love you. Let's pray together for as God guides us to that rest, that we won't be fighting him, but that we'll just allow ourselves to rest in those green pastures. And don't be afraid to plan rest. Don't be afraid to plan retreat, to plan Sabbath. This trip that we did this summer, we started planning well over a year ago, knowing that the benefits it was going to be to get these three families together, and we did. It was so worthwhile. And so that's why April and I have already started planning for next summer when our 2-month sabbatical hits. And we can't wait for seeing how God's going to work through that time. Let me pray together with you. We're going to be able to wind this sucker up at 45 minutes. Perfect. Love you all so much. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for the rest you gave me. I thank you so much for even someone like Angie who gets this passage, and it's soul food for her. Lord, help us to know this. Thank you for college camp at Hume Lake, where Micah just got to completely embrace this idea of rest and Sabbath and being able to retreat. And may we each, in a way that is ordained by you, learn how to Sabbath. May we each understand what it means to rest, and in that find just a deep personal relationship with you, Lord. Intimacy. God, we love you, and thank you for all you do, God. Thank you for my friends. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so there we are. Backshed Bible Study. We're back, and you know what? Oh, I forgot to mention this. Yeah, I know, Sharon. It stinks. Women's retreat was canceled. Ugh. Ugh. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, biggest retreat I had in Colorado was not watching the news and not checking Apple News every day. That was the best thing that happened while we were out there. Is I got to completely separate um, for quite a bit of the junk that was just going on in the world. And you know what? When I turned it all back on, the news was still the same. So you hear me saying this over and over and over, but turn off the stupid TV, stop reading all the Facebook posts, stop reading all the news things. And I'm not saying completely remove yourself from the world. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're finding yourself burdened by all of this, it might be time to push back some of that stuff that is creating the burden and allow God to give you that rest. And then check it a little bit later. The news will still be there. All right. I love you guys. What a great time today. And I don't know how else to say goodbye, but just to say bye-bye. And oh, yeah, here are a couple things for you. Got to throw in these last minute things. We are, as of this week, changing the format of Pastors Live. And because that happens on Wednesday afternoons at 2 o'clock. So what we're going to do, we've gone without it for the last couple of weeks. We're going to reboot it this week, and it will be a bit different. It's going to be a little more personal. So what I'm going to do is I'll bring on usually one other pastor or one other person on staff, and we'll interview that person and give you a little insight into some very specific areas. So it will be shorter, it'll be more focused, and it won't be 9 of us just staring at the camera trying to figure out what to say. So I think you'll enjoy it more, and hopefully just learn a little more about your church and some of the people that are a part of it. So thank you, Barbara Dawn. I appreciate being missed, and but I'm glad to be back too. Some exciting things going on. David mentions that the women's retreat is going to a different facility. I hope so. The men's retreat is. We're going to, men's retreat's moved up to Zephyr Point. Can't wait for that one. Very much wait for that one. I'm super excited about that one. And I think I caught most of you here. So God bless you all. And we'll see you right back here next week for the Backshed Bible Study. See you at church on Sunday. We'll see you. David, wait, he says no. I don't know. Hey, real quick right here, because I just saw my friend Joel Weldon just happened to sign on. And Joel is a guy, I'm just a huge shout out. I respect this guy so much. If you don't know who Joel is, you probably know some of his songs that he's written. You've probably heard his voice on commercials and things like that. So Joel, while you're here, I want to invite you to be a guest on the Backshed one of these days. All right. So I'm going to try to get a hold of you and see if we can't work that one out. So there you go. I love this guy, and we're going to try to get him to be here on the Backshed sometime in the next month or so if we can pull that one off. But love you all, and we will see you next week. God bless you. Bye-bye.